What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I told you guys I had to work, and I didn't get to watch the fights live tonight, so I watched them when I got home. I actually fast forwarded because I was so anxious to see the Banks versus Mitchell rematch and the Broner Malignaggi that I skipped the Bika fight. I just fast forwarded through it, so I have to go back and watch that. Didn't watch it. I was really disappointed with Jonathan Banks versus Seth Mitchell. Um, I expected more fireworks. I did an interview with Jonathan Banks. He sounded from talking to him like he was really focused when the fight was kind of lackluster. So I'm going to move on straight to Malignaggi versus Broner. That fight, to me, definitely made up for it. A lackluster undercard. Again, I didn't watch the Bika fight, so I don't really know how that was. As far as Broner Malignaggi, I thought it was a really good fight. Again, as I said in my previous videos, some of you guys flip-flop. You guys focused on, when the fight was announced, you focused on the fact that Paulie Malignaggi is a light puncher. And that's all I would hear. Oh, Broner cherry-picked him. He's moving up, a weak league champion, blah, blah, blah. Paulie can't punch. But if you know anything about the sport of boxing, it is a sweet science. So styles make fights, and it's not solely based on punching power. When it comes to raw strength, you don't know who has. I mean, Tyson might have more raw strength than, let's say, Lennox Lewis. But that doesn't matter if Lennox Lewis has other tangibles like the height advantage, if he's utilizing his jab. Depends on both fighters' training camps, etc., etc. So there's more to it than just I simply punch harder. Timothy Bradley versus Casamayor. I mean, Casamayor is getting up there in age, had took some tough losses. But in terms of punching power, Casamayor has more punching power than Timothy Bradley, and Timothy Bradley really just ran through Casamayor. So it's not always based on punching power. It is based on intelligence, ring IQ, your conditioning, your corner. There's a lot of factors other than pure punching power. So I said that from the jump that this was a good matchup. Another thing is Adrien Broner's moving up 2 weight classes, and that, as you guys know, this fight went the distance. It was a 12-round fight. Ended in a split decision. 2 judges scored at 115, 113, one for Broner, and then someone else scored at 115, 113 for Malignaggi. Didn't necessarily agree with the 117, 111 scorecard for Broner. I do think the right person won. I will explain that in this video. I think Broner, he started slow, and I'm okay with giving Paulie Malignaggi like the first 4, maybe even 5. I didn't score this live. Possibly 5. I got to watch the 5th round. But Malignaggi came out really energized. He looked focused, as he should. I mean, he's the veteran. It's his belt at stake. And he was comfortably at home in the Barclays. Paulie Malignaggi's from Brooklyn. He's a Brooklynite. And, I mean, he should. I mean, that's what a champion does. I knew this going in that it would be a tricky fight. One, Broner was moving up to 147, first fight there. And he's taking on someone who's not a big puncher, but very crafty, has always been known for having a good chin and utilizing footwork and an excellent jab and a probably underrated jab. So I was really looking forward to this match. Like I said, the volume of punches from both fighters, the total punches thrown, I guess you could say, from both fighters, was a lot. There were a lot of punches. Where the fight slipped away from Paulie Malignaggi is the mid to late rounds. And there were some close rounds in the middle, but I think Paulie Malignaggi clearly dictated the pace early. The first 4 rounds, give it to Paulie Malignaggi. He really came, and it looked like maybe by the 5th or 6th round, Malignaggi was starting to fatigue. I just seen the way his feet looked stiff, the way he was breathing. He just didn't look as energized as he did early in the fight, and that's where I feel Adrien started capitalizing, because he went out away from the Philly shell and more of the defensive posture, and he started opening up, landing some shots. And one thing you got to give Broner credit for, aside from jumping up 2 weight classes, the man is very accurate. He has a high accuracy, one of the highest, especially for a young fighter. His accuracy rate is pretty good. It's like close to 50 in a lot of fights. I think the DeMarco fight, it was something ridiculous, like maybe even like 60. This fight, he had like a 47, 48% accuracy rate. I mean, that's really good, especially for a young fighter. If If you watch even the fight before Seth Mitchell was outworking Jonathan Banks, but Seth Mitchell also threw a lot of shots that did not land. Broner, when he gets in close, I feel he has a high accuracy rate, and that's one of the things that does him well. And one thing I think Broner should have done more, or maybe open up more with this early on, is more body work. Normally, I've seen Broner, and he's done some excellent body work. So I don't know if it's the added weight that played a factor, but if you watch the Antonio DeMarco fight, he was doing some great body work. On the inside, he was fighting really good. And that's basically just the fight. Adrien Broner started landing the harder punches. There was a couple of times that it looked like Paulie Malignaggi was rocked, in some trouble, probably buzzed. There was no point in the fight where I really seen Paulie Malignaggi had Broner in trouble or Broner looked like he was hurt. There's no point in the fight where Broner stopped being the aggressor. Like I said, if you watch the fight before, Seth Mitchell versus Jonathan Banks, for the most part, Seth Mitchell was the aggressor in the fight and he was coming forward. However, there were some times where he got shook up and he was kind of on the retreat and Jonathan Banks was pressing the action. I didn't really see that with Adrien Broner, so it lets you know that, just like everyone knows, Paulie Malignaggi doesn't have much punching power. But he did all he could, again, using his veteran seasoning and his boxing ability and ring IQ. He turned this into a very interesting fight. I do think the right person won. I do think Broner won. But it was close, a very close fight, closer than in my prediction, I thought Broner would stop him. But it looks like Paulie's experience, Broner moving up in 2 weight classes, it did not translate to a stoppage victory. But good victory for Adrien Broner. He's still young. And I think it's experiences like this that'll help him grow as a fighter. Being in with somebody who doesn't punch hard, but you still can't get him out of there because they have a good chin and solid boxing all the way around. And again, those are great experiences for a young fighter like Broner. I also said when Keith Thurman, another young fighter prospect, when he fought Zibic or whatever the fuck his name is, you're not going to be able to knock everyone out, and you got to know how to stay composed, how to adapt, and deal with those seasoned fighters. So, good job, really, for both fighters. Paulie Malignaggi, a lot of people favored Broner in this fight, thought he was going to get knocked out, and he clearly did not. So, it was a good fight. I have to watch it again, rescore it, and just to see if there's anything I missed. But I think the right person won. I don't think the 117-111 scorecard was quite accurate. I would have had it closer, but I don't think Malignaggi won. I think some of you guys look for opportunities or excuses to start, like, create havoc and create controversy. Anytime the refs, or it's a split decision or any kind of controversy with the decision, everyone just resorts to, oh, it's a robbery. Timothy Bradley Ruse and Provodnikov won, it was a robbery. Jose Luis Castillo versus Mayweather, robbery. Mayweather lost, robbery. Adrien Broner de Leon, robbery. Like, everything is a robbery. Everything is not a fucking robbery. We're dealing with close fights that could be scored differently depending on what you're looking at. These are all really close fights. Everything I just listed was a close fight. So I don't think they're robberies. It's not like Felix Sturm versus De La Hoya or something. These are pretty rough and tumble affairs where either fighter could have won certain rounds and shit. So stop looking for an excuse to call everything a robbery. And then aside from that, I just feel that, like I said, some of you guys just want commotion. You want something to complain about. You want some animosity. I would want to see a rematch. I think this fight definitely could warrant a rematch. Give Broner an opportunity to fight somewhere else, not in Brooklyn, since he's the belt holder, and give Paulie Malignaggi an opportunity to get his belt back. I think both guys sold the fight pre-fight with the shit talking. They both had solid performances and looked good in spots. Like I said, I think Broner just picked up the pace and kept that pace, and his age really started to show, and Paulie Malignaggi's age started to show later in the fight. But Paulie has chin, Paulie has heart, and for that reason, I think this warrants a rematch if they are to go that way. I wouldn't be opposed to that. It was an exciting fight for me, and we'll see what's next. other people Broner can fight if he stays at welterweight, which I don't know if how the weight. I mean, only Broner knows how he felt inside that ring. Matisse, a lot of people want to see him fight Matisse. If Matisse is willing to move up, or if Broner wants to move back down, I would love to see that fight. I would love to see really anybody at 140, any of the top dogs at 140. Marcos Maidana is another fight they're talking about with Broner. I've said this time and time again. It's an interesting fight, but some of you guys are dum-dums and you want to compare like Paulie Malignaggi in that fight, like Paulie Malignaggi fight with Marcos Maidana. Like, oh, Marcos Maidana is going to kill Broner based on the fact that Paulie Malignaggi didn't get knocked out and look good, but styles make fights, so I mean you can't really compare. That's like Marcos Maidana versus Devin Alexander is a totally different fight from Marcos Maidana versus Josecito. Josecito has boxing ability, but he chooses not to use it a lot, and he uses it in spots, and he comes to bang, and he fights more or less with heart and instinct, where Devin Alexander fights with like more of a slick style. So you can't really compare the two. Marcos Maidana looked like shit against Devin Alexander, but Josecito had moments where he looked good even though he lost the fight. So you can't really compare that Broner versus Maidana versus Paulie Malignaggi, because Broner or Malignaggi is still pretty quick at age 31, 32. He's still pretty quick on his feet, light on his feet. He has great lateral movement, a jab. I would say more ring IQ, and he also has a chin. He just doesn't have much pop. If Paulie Malignaggi had power, he'd be an animal. Like I don't know many fighters that would want to step in the ring with him. His only downfall is the fact that he doesn't really have respectable power, like significant power. But Maidana is a completely different fighter, way more flat-footed, even with Robert Garcia trying to coach him and give him some more boxing basics. Way different fighter. He doesn't move as much. He kind of comes with the same game plan, fight per fight. He just is a tough dude. He just comes to fuck you up. Where Malignaggi is going to use his brain because he knows he doesn't have necessarily the power. Amir Khan, that's another fight. I don't see Amir Khan beating Broner. One, if they fought at 147, Khan's going to have to move up. We've never seen Khan at 147. And I do know at 140, there's a lot of people that have sparked Khan. Maidana, Danny Garcia, British Prescott. There's moments you can argue where Lamont Peterson had him shook up. Julio Diaz recently. And if you watch that, if you want to talk fight by fight, Julio Diaz is 30-something, like early 30s. And he was way too economical with his punches. And he has nowhere near the speed of Broner. He's not going to throw combinations. And that's probably why he lost that fight, is because Julio Diaz had Khan hurt, but he was too sparing with his punches. He didn't really take that ultimate risk. I think Broner, when he has his man hurt, he's a good finisher, and his KO ratio shows you that. Other than that, like I said, it was a good fight. It's funny to see some of the fans, like you compare fights like, or fights like Broner, Malignaggi, you're like, oh, it's a robbery. But I've seen you leave comments for Austin Trout and Canelo, and you say Canelo clearly beat Trout because Trout was throwing pity-pat punches. Trout wasn't landing the more effective shots. And if you look at these two fights, they're kind of pretty similar. Austin Trout outworked Canelo. He had a higher volume of punches. However, Austin Trout's punches were not hurting Canelo, whereas Canelo landed fewer or threw fewer. He was less active. I mean, Canelo was obviously less active than Broner, but Austin Trout had a higher work rate, but he could not hurt Canelo. And Canelo was hurting Austin Trout, but he was throwing less. That's pretty much what we've seen here tonight with Adrien Broner, but I don't think Adrien Broner was as economical with his punches as Canelo was in the Trout fight. And there's no open scoring in this fight, so Broner didn't know where he lied in terms of the scorecards. But I do think Broner landed the harder shots, the more quality shots, even if Paulie threw more. And again, you got to look at the accuracy of those shots. So I would much rather be at the end of the fight, I would much rather be Broner than Malignaggi, and that's another way to score close fights. Who would you rather be? And I would clearly rather be Broner, just because he never really looked visibly hurt, and I don't think Malignaggi landed anything significant enough to have him in trouble. So that's what I think. Let me know what you guys think of this fight. Other than that, I had a good time with the fights, and I'm going to go eat something. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video, it's Ego signing off.